This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com. Yes, and this is a Common Lawyer Comments concerning our common law, our law of the land as it is compared and contrasted with its ever-present antagonist on every continent and every age, the law of the city. We're reading here from the Catechism on the Constitution of the United States by Arthur J. Stansbury, published in the year 1828, the same year that Webster published his first American dictionary of the English tongue. Now, by the way, Stansbury was a Bible sharp, a gospel sharp, as they used to call him, a preacher, Christian man. How long did the struggle? No, here we go. Question. Catechisms are questions and answers. When and where did the War of the American Revolution begin? Again, it wasn't a revolution. The War of the Revolution, it's not a revolution, it was a war for separation. The revolution is about vengeance of the past. That's not what this was. Where did it begin? It began, answer, at Lexington and Concord, villages near Boston in Massachusetts, on the 19th of April in 1775. Listen, my children, and you shall hear. Remember? I hope you remember. And you shall hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 19th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. Talks about how Paul Revere, remember, was standing on the other side of the water where the Old North Church was on the other side. I've been to the Old North Church. It's still there. Well, the Old North Church, this was fascinating. Very crowded part of town now, and it's right in the middle, Miss Francine, of the Italian district of Boston. Of course, the complexion of the place has changed a lot, but the old church building is there. We were standing across on the other side of the water, looking across a slip there where the warships would come in. And there was a British warship sitting there. The moon was bright. You're looking across the Old North Church to the Belfry Tower. And he was waiting to see if the British would arrive. They knew they were going to arrive, the British troops, but would they come by land or by sea? If he saw one lantern in the Belfry Arch, I believe it was by land and two if by sea. One if by land, two if by sea, and then he would jump on his horse and hightail it over to Concord and Lexington. They knew that's where they were going. Until the Minutemen there to get ready. They didn't want to fight, and they didn't want to attack, but they just wanted to defend their powder and their arms, and they didn't want the British to take them from them. We're talking Second Amendment, you see. We're talking about the common law right to keep and bear arms, and it is a common law right. That's fact. Well, he's watching and he sees a lantern appear, but then he waits, and he knew they were coming by land. And he leapt aboard his horse and hightailed. When he came to the bridge, he could hear the bleating of the flock and the twitter of the birds in the trees as he felt the breath of the morning breeze. It was the breath of the morning breeze moving across the field, still brown. Spring hadn't got there yet. April in New England, it's cold up there. There was one fella in that village at that point in time who was safe and asleep in bed, who at that bridge would be the first to fall, who that day would be pierced by a British musket ball, the shot that was heard round the world. Well, you know the rest. In the books you have read how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind every fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down through the land, thence across the fields to emerge again. Under this tree, at the turn of that road, pausing only to fire and reload. That's how it all started. How long did it continue? Question number 28. More than 7 years. 7 years. Why so long? I'll tell you why. I know why. I read the history. Because George Washington refused to square off his army, the Continental Army, with the British regulars. Why? Because he knew he'd lose, that's why, and it would all be lost. So what did he do? What did men do all over the colonies? They dogged the British. They dogged them to death. They did the same thing to the British that the North Vietnamese did to us. They dogged us to death. Until in the end, we left. We got weary of it. We got weary of the game. You've only lost when you give up, and George didn't give up. He dogged them to death. When did it end? On the 21st of January, that's the next question. On the 21st of January, 1783, when a treaty was signed at Paris acknowledging the independence of the United States. Question 30. Why is the 4th of July kept with such public rejoicing through all parts of the United States? Still is, right? I mean, 4th of July is a big deal. Because on the 4th of July, 1776, the colonies first declared themselves free and independent from Britain. From that day, the independence of the country, the United States, is reckoned in all our public proceedings, though it was not acknowledged by Great Britain until the year 1783. Question 31. What was the change produced by this war with Britain? Answer. The different colonies became each a free and sovereign state, having power to govern itself in any way it should think proper. Oh, who's it? The state. You notice he's stressing here not the United States governing itself, each state governing itself. God help me, I wouldn't want to live in New York, California. Would you? If you do, you probably want out. You wouldn't be listening to this presentation. No, we can go from one to the other. If we don't like one, we can go to another. Free, independent states with their own governments, their own sovereignty, their own state legislature, their own executive branch of a governor, their own system of courts, judicial branch, and at that time, their own religion. And they were all different sects of Christianity. That's all there was. There wasn't anything else. And 98.6% of the people, by the best figures we can discover, were Protestants. So all the colonies were Protestant. You talk about a critical mass. No, that's overwhelming. Overwhelming. You know, somebody sent me maybe Miss Francine sent this. I don't remember who. I think you did, Miss Francine. It was a map of the United States. One of those maps you see when you go into the AT&T store to get your cell phone, and it has how much coverage they have, and they try to point out that it covers almost the entire geographic area of the United States, with some pockets here and there. Well, it was a comic joke that DJ Trump got the vote, covered the entire United States with some small pockets in the cities that he didn't get. Who wants to go there anyway? Listen, when I'm traveling, I travel a lot around the United States. Mostly west of the Mississippi, or actually west of the Wabash, which is pretty close, but I make a point of avoiding cities pretty much at all costs. If I can go around them or take another road, I don't want to get near a city. It's crowded, it's dangerous, it's depressing. I don't like it. I think God has put that in my head. It's repulsive to me. And as I have said before, you pile men and women up like rats, they're going to act like rats. You would too. I've lived in the city. I know what I lived in the city for, let's see, 4 years. Southern California. That's all city. I lived there. And before that, I was there for a few years as a military man. But I came home. My father couldn't stand to be around me. Couldn't stand it. It caused some serious problems. Here I was farming with him, see. And he just wanted to get away from me, put me on one tractor, he'd get on another. We used to walk the fields after we got the crops planted with corn knives and chop out the cuckleburs. I didn't talk to him. We'd walk rows, then we'd turn, come back the other way. Quarter mile throughs, usually a half mile. I let him do the talking. He'd tell me all the time. It was good exercise for me to shut my mouth. And we're talking all day long, days on end, walking in the hot sun up and down the rows. I never said nary a word. I learned not to. He did the talking and he didn't stop. What a discipline that was for me. He wasn't saying all that much that, oh, I wish I'd listened better. I just got so I couldn't. I would have learned a lot. That was my chance with my dad to learn a lot. I was a full grown man and he was younger than I am now, I think. A little bit, not much. Well, it ended. I said that. Question 31. What was the charge produced by the revolution? Answer. The different colonies became each a free state. I did that one. Number 32. Had not one state any power over the other? Answer. None at all. And the several states might have remained entirely distinct countries, as much as France and Spain. One more, and we'll call in the dogs and head for the house. Number 33. Question. Did they remain separate, entirely distinct states? Answer. This is a long answer. No. Having been led to unite together to help each other in the war with Britain, they soon began to find that it would be much better for each of them that they should all continue united in its farther prosecution. And accordingly, although he says farther, I would have said further, accordingly, they entered into an agreement, which was called a confederation, in which they made some laws which they all agreed to obey. But after their independence was obtained, finding the defects of this plan, they called a convention in which they laid a complete plan for uniting all the states under one general government. Watch that word general. That's what we used to call it. That's a better word than federal. And it tells the truth about what the Constitution says about that government. General. This plan they called, and then he says, the federal Constitution. You don't hear that phrase anymore, federal Constitution. No, it's a general government, and it's a general Constitution for all the states. That is an important meaning to take it by the letters. What is general? That means what the government in Washington, D.C. passes for laws applies generally. That means to everybody equally. And they have a very small jurisdiction wherein they can do that. It doesn't amount to much. But where it does apply, it applies generally. The welfare is to be general welfare, not specific welfare. To favor people of color over white folk, to favor white folk over people of color, to favor sexual proclivities, perversions over others. No, what that government does is general, and its jurisdiction is very narrowly defined. Our Constitution does that. On this great plan, or Constitution, the safety and happiness of the United States does, under Almighty God, mainly depend. All our laws are made by its direction and authority. Well, all our laws that are generally applied to everyone. Whoever goes contrary to it injures and betrays his country, injures you, injures me, betrays us all, and is deserving of the heaviest punishment. Who is deserving of the heaviest punishment? Let's go back and look at that again. Whoever goes contrary to it deserves the heaviest punishment. Contrary to it. Well, what's it? Let's go back a little further. Oh, here it is. The Constitution of the United States. Anybody that goes contrary to it deserves the heaviest punishment. Heaviest? What's the heaviest punishment? Death. Is there something heavier? That's what it sounds like he's saying to me. Now, this is a catechism. I'm not reading from the Constitution, but this is the attitude people had at that time. I don't think I see that now. Treason. What is treason? Very well defined. We'll get to that. Very precisely defined. Treason against the United States. A treason against your state, that's another matter, and each of the states have laws of treason as well against the state. That's because the state is a sovereign, you see. Whoever, on the contrary, loves and keeps it sacred is his country's friend, secures his own safety, and furthers the happiness of all around him. Let every American, from his earliest years, love, cherish, and obey the Constitution. Now, keep in mind again, the Constitution, if I obey the Constitution, that means I insist that it be used to govern those in government. It does not govern me. It does not govern you. It governs those in government, and that's what's going to ensure our safety and happiness, is if they are governed. There's a law that applies to them. They aren't anything special, you see. There are servants. We pay them. Without this, he can neither be great or a good citizen, and without this, his name will never be engraved with honor in the pages of our history, nor transmitted like that of Washington, with praises and blessings to a late posterity. Washington, that's George he's talking about. Well, keep in mind, he says we are to keep it sacred. Why? Is it the Bible or something? Is our Constitution the Bible? No. And 1,000 times no. It does not rise to this level of dignity. It is not inerrant. It is a product of mere men that are observing the way things are, and they aren't going to change, how government has to work and can't work any other way. That's our common law tradition. And if there's, in cases of any inconsistencies between our Constitution of the United States and the Bible, the laws of nature and the laws of nature's God, the Bible is final. It's the court of last resort. This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com. This is a Common Lawyer Comments concerning our common law, our law of the land.